Sounds like New York. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Hello and welcome to today's webinar. This is the latest installment of our Analytics Innovators series, this time featuring Refinitiv. My name is Joshua Schlag, Digital Marketing Manager here at Pyramid. I'll be running us through some quick technical details, and then I'll pass things along to our VP of Customer Success, Richard Osborne, and our guest from Refinitiv, Finance Manager BI, Anthony Fine. So that said, I just want to set a few expectations. We are scheduled for about half an hour today. Richard and Anthony will discuss a variety of topics, and then they'll take some time at the end for Q&A. So please feel free to submit questions at any time during the webinar or at the end through the Q&A console. In case you need to drop off of this session, we are recording this webinar and we'll send out a replay shortly after its conclusion. I believe that addresses all of the technical details, so I'll now pass things along to Richard.
Okay, thanks, Josh, and welcome everybody. As I say, today I'm pleased to be joined by Anthony Fine from Refinitiv, and he's going to be taking us through their use of analytics within Refinitiv and some of the innovations that they've seen by using it. We've got an agenda to follow, so we're going to quickly do a bio in a minute, a company overview of Refinitiv, just to give some backgrounds. And then we've broken the session into a number of different topic areas, which Anthony and I will be discussing as we go through. And as Josh has mentioned, at the end, we've got some time for some Q&A. So please feel free as we go through to record or type up your questions, and hopefully we'll have time at the end to follow up. So I guess as a way of an introduction, this Analytics Innovators series is designed to shine lights on organizations that are using analytics to drive excellence. And by excellence, what we mean is like using analytics that dramatically improves business outcomes and creates repeatable and sustained value. As I say, I'm very pleased to welcome Anthony from Refinitiv. And Anthony, just as a start, it'd be useful just to give us a bit of background about not only yourself, but also Refinitiv, and then we can get into the sort of discussion forum.
Sure. Thank you so much, Richard, for that brief intro. Yes, so as you said, I'm representing Refinitiv, which is one of the biggest providers of financial data in the world. Some of you may know us as Reuters, where part of the company was known as back in the day. And just a little bit of history, Reuters was a British company with a news agency. Main business was financial information. Reuters got purchased by the Thomson Corporation in about 2007, 2008, became Thomson Reuters. And then about a year ago, the financial information arm, which was legacy Reuters and legacy Thomson Financial, got spun off to form Refinitiv. So Refinitiv is a standalone company right now, which is owned by private equity, one of the largest financial information players. So we provide a lot of desktops to mainly financial services customers, but across many different communities, oil and gas, a lot of different trading. Typically, there are about 400,000 users of our products around the world, very, very diversely spread. We're represented in over 190 countries. We have approximately 40,000 customers. And another sort of quirk to our story is Refinitiv is in the process of being acquired by the London Stock Exchange Group. So as you can tell, we've moved around quite a lot with our ownership and with our history, and that's part of the reasons why we need a very flexible reporting tool. My role in Refinitiv, I work very closely with internal management reporting. I've been a Pyramid customer now for close to 2 years. I think we'll come on to it during this webinar about some of our journey, but I've been a key contact liaising between our internal stakeholders and the Pyramid team.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. So as I guess the start of your journey in this sort of analytics world, I guess it'd be good to understand sort of where you've come from in terms of both data and your what I call your analytics infrastructure. So can you give us some bit of insight of, where you've come from, what drove you to, maybe changing that infrastructure?
Sure. Yeah, as I just explained, we've had quite a journey. We've moved around, having been a sort of standalone company, and I was actually from the road to size standalone company for nearly 150 years. Our ownership has moved quite a lot in the last sort of decade or so. So we always needed to be flexible. The area which we're using Pyramid for right now is really around a lot of our financial data. So that's looking at our general ledger data. So we use SAP for that currently. A lot of our HR data, which we use Workday for, and then our billing data. So that's where we do a lot of billing out of SAP, out of Salesforce. So we try to combine all that data and use a lot of that for our management reporting. We use mainly for internal management reporting. Some of it is for external reporting. We use analysis services to produce an OLAP cube. And as you can tell from our journey, we need something which is very flexible. We've been moving chunks of our business. We've been selling different areas. So we need something which is flexible. We need something which is embracing sort of new technology. And we also want to minimize the amount of change for our users during this journey we're having.
So what sort of, I guess when you started, what kind of technologies were you using? Because you've obviously, as you say, you've been a Pyramid customer 2 years. Obviously, prior to that, I guess you were using some other technologies.
That's right. So we had two sort of big technologies we were using internally, two pieces of software. So we had an analytical tool called ProClarity, which ended up getting bought by Microsoft. So we used that, and then we used an Excel add-in called Intelligent Apps. So both those products work really well for us. We used them for probably close to 20 years. So yeah, they were great products. But we had to replace them. They were end of life, if not beyond end of life. So they just didn't work with new security patches. Very hard to support internally and externally, for that matter. So we had to switch. Okay.
So I guess when you started that sort of journey to switch, what was the sort of key criteria for you in coming up with a sort of wish list of products to choose from?
Yeah, it's a good question. Basically we wanted to minimize change for our users. So we didn't want to sort of have our users sitting in days and weeks worth of training. So we needed something which was easy for users to pick up and go with. That's sort of front end. At the back end, we wanted something which was quite easy for us to sort of deploy and maintain as well. We also, as you know, and I've harped on about this quite a few times already, we needed something which was really flexible. As I was saying, our journey has been very, I wouldn't say bumpy isn't the right word, but our journey's been changing a lot. Our structure's been changing a lot. We needed a very flexible tool which was easy to maintain, just due to the amount of change we're having as a company, but we wanted to minimize the change for our users.
Okay. And then what sort of products when you started that evaluation process, what kind of products were you looking at?
Well, we looked obviously at your product, which is why we're using you. We looked at some Microsoft offerings like Power BI. We looked at Tableau, which we had been using, and we still do use a bit of Tableau internally. So those are the sort of three big products, yours, Power BI and Tableau, where we did the evaluation for our internal management reporting.
Right. I guess as you went through that sort of journey, actually, I should just move on because I should have brought this up, so I apologize. I guess I talk to lots of customers as they've moved or they upgrade their analytics strategy. And I guess they all, and I hope you probably do, also face lots of sort of business challenges in that process. I guess it'd be good to understand what sort of challenges you faced in that sort of upgrade, and also what was the consequence of moving or upgrading. As you say, you started with something like ProClarity, it became end of life. And what kind of sort of consequences or benefits did you notice as you upgraded your analytic structure?
Okay, so one of the things which we kept having was just have a back of our mind about how we can have a product that's flexible to use, flexible to deploy. The two products we used, which I referred to earlier, were sort of heavy sort of desktop products. One of them in particular was quite hard for us to deploy. So we wanted something that was easy. We could just almost press a button, get it out to users. So that was the key criteria. We wanted something that was using modern, for the latest versions of security updates and everything else, worked very closely with their sort of best-in-class offerings from Microsoft and from operating systems. We were using, as I was saying, software which was end of life for many years. We were struggling to incorporate new releases, new security releases in it. We needed something that was easy at work with the latest offerings. One other piece, and you did ask me a few minutes ago, Richard, about what products we were looking at. Part of our journey when we were working with, we're part of Thomson Corporation and we became Thomson Reuters, we did actually use Oracle products. So we actually used Oracle Essbase and Oracle Business Intelligence, OB. And I've got to be honest, we did struggle to use that with our cube. So we have analysis services cube. We found it didn't work very well. Essbase and OB didn't work particularly well. So we wanted something that worked very nicely with our cube. This cube had been around now for 20 years. Our users like it. We needed something that very seamlessly interacted with that.
Right. And in terms of deployment now, obviously, I guess you mentioned about your previous products being desktop bound. I guess getting users up and running was obviously a bit of maybe a slower process. What's that process like now?
I mean, it's basically, it's seamless. I mean, we need to do a quick permissioning of a backend, which again takes somebody in our sort of, one of our developers, just a press of a button job. And then for users, it's straightforward web link, bang, there's no software to deploy. So I'd say for your whole end-to-end process, it's probably an hour. The old process we had was probably 2 to 3 days, which involved a little bit of crossing your fingers. Often we would deploy the software, something wouldn't work properly. Maybe the Excel add-in wouldn't quite work. It used to be me, would go around to the user's desk, sit down and fiddle with a couple of settings and eventually get it to work. So we really went from 2 to 3 days to about an hour, which is the current situation. And
in terms of the sort of, I guess, with all these kind of transitions into new technologies, you're obviously coming away from, you had some pain points or issues that you're trying to address. It'd be good to get some insight. I guess it's always interesting when I'm talking to customers how common some of their challenges are. So it'd be good to understand sort of what issues were you facing and what was sort of key to, when you're going through this decision to upgrade or change your focus in terms of technology, what you're trying to address in those pain points.
Well, I think one of the problems, well, a few of the problems we had was that we struggled to have a common view. So everything was very sort of decentralized and we didn't have a lot of sort of standard dashboards, standard reports. So it was very hard. We keep talking about internally about having one version of the truth. My view is it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. Let's just have one version rather than having different versions of just similar numbers. So we really wanted something which consolidates our reporting, makes it easy to share, makes everything sort of accessible in the same spot. So what we had, even though we had one common cube, we would have a lot of people building local reports off that same cube, showing different numbers. The cube was big, lots of different dimensions. So it was very important to have a complete view of the data, an accurate view of the data, rather than lots of different views of the data. It resulted in sometimes we were unable to make accurate decisions in a timely manner just because there were different versions of reports going around. Reports were prepared in slightly different formats, and it was just very hard for us to manage ourselves.
Okay. So if I guess it's always interesting again to share this kind of experience because again as we brought on new customers, they share with us their evaluation process that they went through. It'd be interesting to share some of the sort of key thoughts on as you were going through an evaluation process. To obviously, as we're pleased to hear, you picked Pyramid in the end, but what were the key sort of considerations that you had in mind? You've touched on some of obviously easy use and flexibility. I didn't know whether the sort of key features of a solution that you're picking, what were they? I guess obviously it would be also good to share with the audience some of the reasons why you obviously picked Pyramid, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, good question there, Richard. So we, as I pointed out earlier, we were evaluating a few different products, and we effectively had a table with a few criteria down the roads, and we were trying to weight them. So something like speed, for example, was an important one. So that had a higher weighting than a few other ones like calculated members, which were important, but maybe not quite as important as speed. For us, the key criteria, the most important criteria, I think, was what worked best with our cube. So we have this analysis services cube. We needed that cube to work well. We wanted drill downs, drill up, drill across, you name it. So that was probably our biggest and most important criteria. So probably allied to that, we wanted something which was really intuitive, really user-friendly. And I don't know if we're going to come on to it later, but just in case we don't, but training we've had with Pyramid, I mean, some of us sort of power users, including myself, we had more sort of extensive training in building dashboards. But for the sort of analysts, and I work with plenty of analysts, they need less than half an hour to be up and running. So I can send them a link, I can maybe jump on a quick call with them, or they can watch one of our videos. And within half an hour, if not 15 minutes, they know how to drill down on our cube, drill across, do exporting to Excel, basic calculations. So something which was intuitive and user-friendly was very, very important for us. And that's one of the main reasons we picked Pyramid. Other important factors were and we're still trying to move towards better dashboarding. So we were a very Excel-heavy company. So dumping data in Excel, playing around big Excel sheets, trying to format those sheets, copying them into something like PowerPoint, all quite a clunky manual process. We were looking very much for a tool that supports dashboarding. And again, it's very much a sort of buzz area, but we really wanted to move to rather than just looking at data in Excel, but trying to actually look at data in charts, drill down from charts, come from a high level view into a low level view quite quickly. So that was very important for us. A couple of other sort of criteria which were certainly important for us more who are working at the back end were we wanted to make sure we're working with a company that was very engaged. So some of the bigger companies I mentioned earlier, great, they do have a very large user forum, but very hard to actually get hold of anyone in the company to discuss anything with them, let alone stuff I discuss with you probably on a weekly or almost daily basis. So, it's very important for us to have a vendor that was engaged, that understood what we were doing. And, I've gone on to your Pyramid user forum. You do share ideas with your customers. You can vote for enhancements. I discuss enhancement. I discuss product drawbacks with you. I mean, you've already incorporated some of our feedback into version releases, which has been great. So for us, that was very important. And just, a final piece, and, I hate to talk about it, but it is important in this day and age, is just around pricing. I mean, we needed a product that was competitively priced. There are some products out there which are very, very expensive and fine if you're rolling them out to half a dozen users, but when you're rolling them out across the company, we can't, we want something that's priced very well. I mean, we have to monitor the bottom line, and we have to do that with our internal tools.
Yeah. You mentioned, obviously, your analysis services cubes are very critical to your reporting. Do you have other data sources that you're trying to bring into your sort of analytics workflow?
Yeah, we do. So we have some relational databases we've brought into our Pyramid environment. So effectively, the source data behind the cube, we now have in the same Pyramid environment as the cube. So whereas before, users would access the cube without legacy software, and then have to access their legacy sort of relational data totally separately. We have it all now in one environment, one link. You can actually, when you go down to do a query, I can either go to my cube or I can go to my relational databases. So these are relational databases for HR data, for our general ledger data, some of our CapEx data, some sort of low-level data sets. to give a very practical example, I can go into my cube and I can view my headcount numbers. I can't see the names of the people in my relevant profit centers, but then I can drill down into my relational area, get the names of the people, get more data about those people. And it's just great having all that information in one spot with one link, whereas before people would have to scramble around, try to work out what system to use for what, how do you access that system, what's my login for that system, and so on.
Okay. I guess obviously we've heard a lot about where you've come from, the journey you went on, the evaluation process and things like that. It would just be good to share just sort of what does analytics look like today in terms of Refinitiv, I guess, in terms of, you've mentioned some of the areas that you're using Pyramid in. It'd be a good idea to understand, it'd be good to understand sort of numbers of users, some of your plans. Can you share some of that with us?
Of course. Yeah, so currently we have close to about 400 users of Pyramid, mainly all finance users looking at the data sets we talked about. But we are very proactively looking at deploying Pyramid more widely at some of our other groups. And so that will be different functional areas over and above finance. And so, So not only will they get to use Pyramid, which, as we said, is very intuitive, very user-friendly, but it also means that the data sets can be shared more widely. So people from finance can view, say, the customer admin data sets, people from customer admin can view finance, all comes back to having shared data in one spot rather than different departments using different numbers, different reports. We're looking at potentially replacing some of our other reporting, which we do with, say, business objects, Tableau. That could well be done with Pyramid. We have, as you know, Richard, a very flexible contract. So we spent some time last year working on a contract which allows us to ramp up our users if we need to with Pyramid. And it's great. Someone just came across my desk this morning where we might need to do that. I don't have to go back to you, negotiate a whole new contract. We've got a very flexible contract. We can add the users. We pay you more money for their licenses as needed, but we don't have to keep having these back and forth discussions.
Yep. I guess with all these kind of journeys you go on with, moving from one analytic environment to another, there's going to be some pros and cons. It'd be good to understand, if just in a summary, some of the advantages you've had that you've materialized today, but also share with the audience some of your challenges as well. Because I think as you move through these things, it's not always rosy. You do run into some challenges. It could be business change challenges, could be other things. So it's just it'd be nice to hear or share with us your experiences on that area.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I think I've probably touched on some of the benefits, but just to sort of reiterate, I mean, having a web-enabled products has been great, going from clunky desktop products to web-enabled products, which we don't have to maintain. It's been huge, really, really good for us. That's been massive. The lack of training, which is needed, 20, 30 minutes to get users up and running has been great. A couple of other sort of features we haven't probably talked about are, but in Pyramid, you have sort of shared networks. So all the Pyramid reports are shared in one spot. So previously, people would do Excel reports, save things locally, save things on their little departmental drives. We now have one directory of all the Pyramid reports saved for all the different areas. So it's great. Everything is very collaborative. Whereas before, I'd have to dig out little links off emails from different groups. It's all in one spot. That's been great. One of the other features I just wanted to touch on, Richard, is around getting data out of Pyramid. I mean, you can you can schedule publications to dump your, to produce your report in Excel, PDF, PowerPoint, have it in your email, in your inbox that morning. Fantastic. I don't have to go in, run a report, export it. It's great. Does all that. But there's been fantastic benefits. A few challenges. I mean, we've been talking about dashboards. Your dashboarding functionality is great. I've got to be honest, basic dashboards we found quite easy to produce. I think we need more time to develop really nice in-depth dashboards. I mean, I don't think people can get there in 20, 30 minutes to develop nice dashboards. I mean, that's more complicated, does require a bit more time. We mentioned before, I mentioned before about Excel, and obviously a lot of finance people and a lot of other users use Excel. We did struggle, and we still do struggle, I think, with working with Excel and Pyramid. But the great thing is, we've brought this to your attention. It sounds like you're very close to releasing, and I forget the exact terminology, but we've got some sort of Excel add-in which will allow Excel to work quite closely with Pyramid, which is great. I mean, again, you've been listening to us, we've been feeding these sort of comments back to you. This is coming. And on a related note, I mean, there have been quite a lot of different releases, big releases, small releases, all of which takes time for us to test, to actually deploy. But the benefit of all these releases means that things get into production, into your latest, you get the latest versions of everything, latest enhancements in these releases. So, some of the things we've moaned to you about, you've listened, you've incorporated, but again, it just means a lot of releases.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just conscious of time. So Anthony, thank you for that. I'm just going to look at our sort of Q&A questions that are just coming in. I think we've got probably time for at least one. So I think you've touched on this, but the question is, what's been the learning curve been like with Pyramid? If I was just a common user from, going from a beginner to or a novice to a confident user, in your experience, what's been the sort of timeline?
20 to 30 minutes max, and very, very easy, very intuitive. Most of the features are very obvious. It's one of those tools where there's multiple ways to do things. So moving dimensions into rows, I think you can do 3 or 4 ways. So it's not like you have to learn the one way to do it. You can sort of right click, you can drag. So it works very nicely sitting on top of functionality I think we all know and love. So it's been very easy. Certainly within half an hour, with a little bit of prodding from either a live prodding or some sort of video or just online tutorials which you have within your tool, someone can certainly get up and running and using it.
Okay. Josh, I'm just conscious of time, so I think we're probably going to have to draw a line there. So, Anthony, I'd just like to thank you once again for participating in this session. It's certainly been very insightful. And I hope everybody else on the sessions has appreciated the thoughts and the guidance that Anthony shared with us. So, thank you once again. Thank you for everybody listening. I hope you found this useful, and I'll hand back to Josh.
Thanks once again, guys. Just a reminder, we will send a replay of this event later today. So please feel free to share that with your colleagues if you think that they might find this session interesting. In the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. You can either reply to that replay email, or you can even reach us through the Contact Us page on our website. As Richard has said, we do hope that this has been beneficial as you seek out solutions for data and analytics. Thanks for attending, and have a great rest of your day.